gear seekers, I'm Nick. We've got something fresh here. Another X570S board, another one from Gigabyte. This one is the Aero G. So without further ado, let's take a bit of a closer look. And as usual, ladies and gents, these motherboard videos are not reviews. So let's jump right in. Now, our motherboard videos are designed to show you guys what comes in the box with the brand new motherboard and everything physically on the board, because these videos are not reviews. They're just some pretty easy to digest overviews. Let's take a look at what's in the box. Alright ladies and gents, let's check out the Gigabyte X570S Aero G. It's a new series, well it's basically the Vision series that's been renamed to the Aero series. Okay. Let's get the motherboard out of the way so we can take a bit of a closer look at everything that comes in the box with this brand new X570S board. First thing we've got is the multilingual installation guide. Now this multilingual installation guide will show you how to socket the CPU, how to install the RAM, and do all of the things for first-time builders and for long-time builders. Next up is the X570S Aero G user guide. This is basically running you through the BIOS, what everything is on the board, and how to do everything with this board essentially, and all the features and just everything you need to know for first-time builders and for long-time builders. Next up is this round circular plastic device that no one knows what it is. I don't know why it exists in 2021, considering with all the Z590 boards they gave little download card things. Anyway, here's a little microphone. This microphone is an acoustic microphone that listens to the noise levels inside of your system and can adjust the fan speeds accordingly. Very cool little feature. Next up, we've got the G connector. Now the G connector is pretty handy if you want to plug everything into a single block to plug into your motherboard for all your lights and all your switches and all your wires. Yeah. This is a pretty standard Gigabyte thing to include. Next up is this shark fin antenna for the built-in Wi-Fi 6, not 6E, and Bluetooth 5. There's a set of SATA cables for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning rust drives. There's a bunch of screws here for the M.2 slots because, as you're about to find out in a moment, much like the X570S Aorus Master, the Aero G also has 4 M.2 slots as well. There's 2 thermal probes that can be plugged into the board that can measure certain temperatures inside of the case and your system and adjust fan speeds accordingly. There's also a 4-pin 12-volt RGB extension cable. This is pretty standard stuff with Gigabyte boards. Last but not least, the motherboard itself, the X570S Aero G, unsheathed and ready to look at. Let's do it. First up, we've got the front panel audio connector. There's a 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB header and a 4-pin 12-volt RGB header. There's a TPM header, a serial port header. There's 2 USB 2.0 headers for your AIOs and pumps and all that kind of stuff that requires it. USB 3.2 front panel header. There's 2 PWM fan headers and the front panel connector for all your lights and all your switches and everything to let you know your system is up and running. There's a right angle USB 3.2 header. There's 6 SATA ports for your 2.5-inch SSDs or your spinning rust drives. There's also a Thunderbolt header and an array of LEDs for diagnostics. There's a USB Type-C front panel header, 3 PWM fan connectors for your fans and all that jazz. There's a 24-pin power connector to send juice to your brand new X570S Aero G, another PWM fan connector, and a Q flash button for updating your BIOS. On the top right hand side there is a 4-pin 12-volt RGB header and another 3-pin 5-volt addressable RGB header, as well as 2 more PWM fan connectors. In terms of power delivery, there's an 8-pin EPS power connector with a supplemental 4-pin EPS power connector as well. For PCIe slots on the board, the top slot is a by 16 slot, the middle one is a by 8 slot, and the bottom is a by 4 slot, and they're all by 16 sized. These are all also PCIe Gen 4 slots. Everything on this board is PCIe Gen 4. Speaking of, these new X570S boards, they feature the same X570 chipset, however, they no longer need to be actively cooled, so they're all passively cooled with a heatsink. Speaking of heat sinks, this is the setup for the VRM cooling on the board. It features a 12 plus 2-phase digital VRM setup with 60 amp power stages. I just wanted to mention as well, next to that heat sink for the VRM cooling, there's an additional 4-pin 12 volt RGB header as well. This board features a standard AM4 socket with support for Ryzen 2000, 3000 and 5000 CPUs, including all of the APUs in between, and standard AM4 cooler mounting as well. If we flip the board over, there's not anything really interesting going on back here. There's no backplate, but as usual, I figured I'd show you the backside so you can see what's going on here. The X570S Aero G supports up to 128 gigs of DDR4 memory. As far as overclocking is concerned, I'm not sure about the maximum speed for this board, but it does support XMP profiles. Alright, let's take the heat sinks off the M.2 slots on this board so we can see what's going on here. There is 4 in total here, which, like I mentioned, is like the X570S Aorus Master as well. But as you're about to see, it's slightly different, as in it's got the Wi-Fi card underneath the bottom M.2 slot. However, as mentioned, all of these 4 M.2 slots are PCIe Gen 4 capable. For rear I/O, there's some USB 2.0 ports, antenna connectors for the built-in Wi-Fi 6, DisplayPort in because it has that display pass-through, HDMI 2.0, there's also some more USB 3.2 ports, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, and 7.1 digital surround sound with optical and SPDIF output, as well as that integrated I/O shield. Alright ladies and gents, hope you enjoyed this first look and overview of the Gigabyte X570S Aero G. Now, I noticed something with this board in particular. What I think Gigabyte's done is they're getting rid of the whole Vision lineup of products by the looks of it, and they're using a brand or like a product family that they've already had before that. They've used the Aero family for their laptops and those kind of products over the years. So I feel like for them to create something called Vision was, I don't know, maybe too much work, and they already had all the branding for the Aero stuff. I don't know why they didn't do that in the first place. That's a little bit confusing, don't you think, Claire? They should have just called it Aero from the beginning, right? But I kind of like the Vision name. I think it sounds better than Aero, right? Anyway, the board has a couple features that I didn't talk about, like Display Link, which is basically kind of like Thunderbolt. Well, I think it's Thunderbolt, but for what Gigabyte's using on their AMD boards. But basically the idea is DisplayPort goes in from your GPU and can output through the USB Type-C, exactly like Thunderbolt. So that's exactly what it is. It is Thunderbolt, except it's not, because it's called Display Link, right? Because you can plug your GPUs and stuff into it as well. So I know, sounds a little bit confusing, but it is what it is. In terms of pricing for the Aero G, no idea. I don't know when these are coming out. Availability, no idea. I can't tell you. I've looked around the place and I can't find anything. The product page is up, so if you want to take a closer look at that with all of the other stuff with this board that I didn't mention, which is not very much because I basically talked about everything, check out the product page. I'll put a link in the description or in the pinned comment or whatnot. With the X570S Master video that we did last week, I saw comments about people talking about like, oh, why would you buy this motherboard considering AM5's coming really soon? I don't see AM5 coming out for another year or so, and there's people who need to build computers now, not in a year's time. So as mentioned in that video as well, I said that X570 was getting a little bit long in the tooth, so personally, I think it's good to see a refresh now because I think we're at least a year out from getting any AM5 or Zen 4 stuff, so yeah. A year for someone to wait for computer hardware is a very, very long time. Even 2 years is pretty long as well, Claire. Yeah. Don't you reckon? Yeah. You know what I'm referencing?
Yeah. Fairy tales.
Yes, I was referencing the June Pro stuff that's going on at the moment. Hopefully we'll see June Pro arrive here soon, since we did back the project as well. I don't know, Claire. I'm feeling a little bit dull.
It happens.
Yeah, a little bit dull.
Takes one to know one.
Yeah, I must be a bit dull, don't you think? Yeah, anyways, guys, if you like the music you heard here, I make all the music. It's available over on Patreon. If you want to get early access to videos like this one, head on over to Floatplane.
Are you going to take a breath or are you going to keep going?
No, I like doing it because I feel like I'm being an auctioneer. Once again, thank you very much for watching your winning with the keys. You make easy. It's time to engage in cinematic mode. Let's go. That wasn't very dull.